Hey, welcome to the 183rd episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patrons Kip Adler and Christopher Weil. I'm Oren Kaplan.
And I'm Matt Unlow. Today we've got Joseph Cross and Audrey Tommassini, the director and producer of Summer Night. You'll recognize Joseph from such films as...
So Joseph Cross has done a ton of stuff that you've probably seen. He had a big arc in Big Little Lies. He was the kid in Running with Scissors.
He's in Milk. He's in Lincoln. He's worked with a ton of very exciting filmmakers, and he's taken all, including previous guest Justin Lerner, and he's taken a lot of that insight and experience and distilled it into his first feature, Summer Night, which he directed and produced with his wife, Audrey. So they're here together to talk to us about the roller coaster of an experience making their first feature is. We all hear the war stories where everyone's in the trenches. This is a real doozy. Maybe the most perilous one we've heard in at least a while. But it starts with these highfalutin Hollywood auspices. Joseph's been in a ton of great movies.
He knows a ton of awesome actors.
He knows a ton of awesome people. So he starts at the top of his game. And the movie turns out great. Everything works out. That's no spoilers. But it was a really hard road that they traveled down. And so we really dig in on all of the things that they wish they'd done differently and all of the different, trials that they ran through. It's a real treat, this one. It's also another installment in our actor turned director series. We've been our hashtag JSI acting intensive. We're really enjoying it. We've been talking to a ton of great actors. And this is yet another one in that lineup.
Yeah, and his movie also has like an amazing cast, like Justin Chatwin from Shameless, Annalee Tipton from Hung, Victoria Justice from Victorious, Disney or Nickelodeon show. She's just very well known to a certain segment of society. Has Eller Coltrane, the lead from Boyhood. Yeah, so I don't know. It's really interesting. I really loved it because it's like the top agencies in Hollywood and also the bottom of the barrel of indie filmmaking that they had to deal with.
Yeah.
They take us through that story.
It just goes to show making movies
is difficult. I also really love talking to them about just directing. And, Joe has worked with some of the best directors in Hollywood, Spielberg, Jean-Marc Vallée, and a bunch of other amazing ones. And what he's learned from them is really interesting. And we touch on that as well.
So before we hop into it, just want to remind everybody, you go to justshootitpod.com/live. You can get tickets to our up-and-coming live show. We're doing one October 20th here in Los Angeles at Rita House. We're putting together an awesome panel of genre directors. So this is like our Halloween.
What is a genre director? I'm curious, Matt.
I'm being a little vague about it. We'll have a handful of horror people, maybe a little sci-fi, and, just...
Thriller.
Yeah, exactly.
Suspense.
It's not just like slasher films is what I'm getting at. I want to kind of like mix it up, but in the kind of pulpy, fun, genre sort of.
Not drama, not comedy.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything else.
Sci-fi, thriller, horror, basically.
Genre is, to me, it's like everything minus dramedy.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be super fun. We're going to pull out all the stops. It's our Halloween extravaganza, and it's October 20th here in Los Angeles. So grab a ticket, justshootitpod.com/live. You'll have pizza, we'll have beer.
It's also my birthday party, pretty much.
Basically the same thing. So yeah, see everyone there.
And one final thing I want to add is that we have a Patreon, patreon.com/justshootitpod. I finally mailed out the hats today, Matt. I hope you're happy.
Oh, thank you.
I was going to mail them out much earlier, but apparently the boxes don't fit into the mailbox. You have to go into the post office to mail them. But if you go to patreon.com/justshootitpod, you will be able to help throw a few bucks towards the podcast, help support us if you like it, if you feel like it's added something to your life, if you feel like you got a tip that you used on set or it made you decide to not move to LA.
Or if you just want to go to the live show and you don't want to pay the ticket price.
Oh, yeah. That will also do it.
Because even if you are a patron at the $1 level, you get into the show.
For free.
Yeah.
Kind of. And then also, if you're a patron at the $10 level, you get a Just Shoot It hat, which is just an amazing hat to wear on set because you don't need to say anything. When people say, Mrs. or Mr. Director, what should we do now? You just point to your hat.
Just shoot it.
Yeah, and the answer is there.
I was thinking, actually, should we, as an add-on, to, if you get a ticket, should you be able to say, hey, I want to purchase a Just Shoot It hat?
Yeah, I think that is an excellent idea. If you are interested in buying a hat, let us know, and we will sell you one.
We'll have them handy.
For very good deals.
Yeah.
Without any further ado, let's talk to Joseph Cross and Audrey Tommassini. Okay, we are here with Audrey and Joseph. Thanks for coming, guys.
Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So you guys made a movie.
We did.
Yeah.
And has it come out yet?
Yeah, it was released on July 12th by Samuel Goldwyn.
Oh, right.
How's Sam? He's nice out here, right?
He's around for sure.
Yeah, it came out in 10 cities, 10 screens, and on VOD the same day. And now it's on iTunes and Amazon and everywhere else you get your movies. That was a really quick plug for my movie. Not even 1 minute in.
Hey, man, that's the idea, right? Here we are.
Cool. And it's called Summer Night, right?
Summer Night.
Because it all takes place
During one summer night.
That's cool.
And it's one of those kind of classic, like, young people ensemble group sort of stories, right? Mm-hmm. Takes place in Austin.
No,
pardon me. Sorry.
No, so it was originally
Austin,
written
right?
for
cool.
Chico, California.
Oh, that's funny. Are you from Chico?
No, I'm not from Chico, but the writer, Jordan Jolliffe, went to school at Chico State. So that was where it was meant to take place, but we couldn't shoot it there because we couldn't afford to shoot it in California. So we went to Noonan, Georgia. And there's the only real indication of where it is you see a California license plate at the top of the movie.
That makes sense.
So you obviously have been an actor, Joe, for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Why the switch to direct? I mean, I guess maybe the first question is like, are you kind of making a transition into directing, or is this kind of just something you're doing along with acting?
So I started writing, and I was working on a script that wasn't very good, and my friend Lucas Evans was working on a movie called The Circle, James Ponsolt's movie, and Lucas said, you should let James's writing assistant Jordan Jolliffe read your script, and maybe he can help you and whatever. So Jordan very graciously read that and gave me a lot of notes and helped. And I said, if there's anything you have that you want me to read, let me know. And so he sent.
Wait, what does this writing assistant do?
What does a writing assistant do on set? Yeah. That's a good question.
Or does James write the script and
or
then
maybe
he just
it's
has someone in the room with him?
Come up with some ideas.
Or maybe it's like just an assistant who happened to be a writer. Maybe
or is he typing?
Is just.
I think there are both of those positions certainly exist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So when I did Lincoln, Tony Kushner's writing assistant, Antonia, was like very much I think she was like a writing associate. So she did a lot of the research for
real
him.
Writing is involved. In it.
Right, yeah. And I don't know if that's actually writing like scenes, but it is like breaking things down and research materials and presenting that sort of stuff.
Pitching probably a little bit as well to the, capital W writer, in that case.
Well, it's interesting because, like composers, they're like a lot of times barely composing. They'll write like the main theme for a movie, and then they'll have like they have their camps, like Hans Zimmer and John Williams have
interesting.
Like dozens of people that work for them, and they write all the like, oh yeah, they added this like little comedic scene. Can you just like write something? And then they just kind of approve it. And so, with writers, in features, like you always think of like, oh, this is the person that came up with the idea, pitched it, got it approved, sat down, typed it into the computer, and they did it by themselves. But I guess there are like people that have these assistants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, I wasn't on The Circle, and I don't know how they work together. But so that's how I met Jordan, and then he sent me the script for Summer Night, which I thought was great, and I thought, you could make this on a budget, and it's interesting, and it's warm, and it's emotional, and it, struck me and stuck with me for whatever reason. And so at first I thought that I was just going to try to help him get it made, like from a producing perspective. And
when he showed it to you, did he have like a part for you, or how did he present it?
We were just kind of kicking material back and forth, just like, getting to know each other and getting to know each other's work. And we were just kind of like becoming friends and like having a creative conversation, really. Yeah, there was no, I mean, if he did have a part for me in mind, that, he didn't say that.
It was just a script living on his desktop. I mean, it wasn't like anything was happening. He was just like, hey, I wrote this. Would you read it? And it happened to kind of strike, Joe. And Joe was like, well.
And this was in the midst of you working on your own script. and
Yeah.
getting notes from him.
Right. Yeah. So then, so I thought like, oh, well, maybe I can help you produce this. Like maybe I can, whatever, figure out a way to like find you a director and put things together. And there was actually a great music video director that we talked to for a little while that it didn't end up working out with. And then I just got deep enough into it. And I was working on Big Little Lies at the time and watching Jean-Marc Vallée work. And I just had this moment where I thought like, oh, I want to direct this. Like, I think I know how to tell this story. And so Jordan was cool with that. And, I said, we should see if we could get your boss to be our executive producer because that could help kind of get things moving. So we sent it to James and, waited for him to get done with the edit and whatever. And eventually he was like, sure, yeah, whatever you need. So that was pretty cool. And then, it
To
took
be an executive producer, you guys. So nice, right? Sure, yeah, sounds great.
Sure, yeah, whatever.
Wait, so he basically, as an EP, he kind of helped kind of lend his name to get it made, to get it cast and get it financed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just basically lent his name and said, sure, like, I'm James
Use it.
Ponsoldt and I approve this
Stamped.
movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't you think like a good business idea is to find people that have the same names as like famous people and then be like, hey, we got James Ponsoldt, because literally at the end of the day, it's like just like this stamp of approval from this person that has this name, but they're
probably
not
get sued.
doing it.
yeah, I think that's fraud.
I think that's fraud. I think it's misrepresentation.
Quentin T. We got Quentin T. He's
Not a lawyer.
I
an
guess you
idea.
couldn't list credits afterwards, which might be a problem.
No, I'm saying it would be illegal because you'd find like the person that has the exact same name
Right.
and just say, just give them $10.
Listen, let them Google it.
Like, do you
They
remember-
can draw their own conclusions?
I think Taco Bell did this campaign where they found like 100 people in America named Ronald McDonald. And
Oh,
they just
God.
had them like eating tacos and being like, this is so good.
That's really funny.
Yeah. So then how did you decide to direct it?
So yeah, like I said, I just sort of had this moment where I was like, okay, I think I should direct this. And then Jordan was game. And then James and I are at the same agency. And so I sent it over there and they were interested in it. And then I had, I started like talking to people who were friends of mine, like Justin Chatwin, other people that I didn't know personally, but were at the same agency, like Yeller Coltrane. And we put a cast together. And then we took it out for financing and like nobody wanted to make it.
So hold on. So on this show, we do a lot of like pumping the brakes, right? Like
Sure.
that was a lot of like really interesting information that you just threw at
Yeah.
us. But so I want to
A lot of
ask.
phone calls.
Yeah, a lot of phone calls, right?
Yeah, a lot of phone meetings.
But I think a lot of people will be curious about like the logistics and the actual, nitty gritty of that. So you
Yeah.
said you put, so you're at this agency, right?
Yep.
Is it just phone calls? Is it copies? How are you really, like when you say you put together this cast? Well, walk us through that a little
Especially
bit more.
when you get like an actor that you don't know personally. but
Right.
You're saying like, hey, trust me to direct this movie. It's going to be my first movie.
Joe
you know?
has the added advantage, I think, of having a wonderful relationship with UTA and having like really big agents really like him, which is like,
Like they
just-
vouch for him as
well,
a creative
I remember
person.
one agent at a party, I forget what the context was exactly, but she was like, use the agency, Joe. Use us to the full ability that we can be used. And I think you took that really to heart. Like it seemed like after that you
I
were
did.
like, I'm gonna
I was like,
do
oh,
that.
I could just send anything to anybody? And they're
Right.
like, well.
Yes, pretty much.
So there's an agent named Ryan Muckenthaler who was on the desk of my agent, Teresa Peters, and he was an assistant. And he became an agent, and he showed up to the premiere of Justin Lerner's movie, The Automatic Eight, like to support
Previous
me
guest, Justin.
as an actor in that. And Jordan Jolliffe and my friend Lucas Evans, who's one of the EPs on the movie as well, were there. And so we just sort of flanked Ryan, and we were like, hey, this is what we want to do. This is the movie. At that point, I already had decided, I think I decided I wanted to direct it at that point.
And sorry, just to make sure we're clear here. So Ryan had he been promoted already?
Yes, he had just been promoted.
Which is an important thing, right? Because that means he doesn't have his own client base that he's representing.
Correct,
So he's
right.
hungry.
Yes,
Right?
so he's like going on to teams of people who he had a prior relationship with, like, me and whoever else, as well as, I imagine, searching for new clients and that sort of thing. So he read it and really liked it, and, kind of strapped it to his back over there and started hustling it with me. So, I would, go through like IMDb Pro, you can buy it for $100 a year. And
50 if you do it in January.
Really?
Yeah, you get a little bonus there. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I need to re-up. I'm going to wait till January.
Yeah, wait till January. Yeah.
And so I would sort of, to begin, I would like look through their roster and see who was right for which parts. And, obviously they didn't have enough people to play every single role, but like in the case of Eller Coltrane, I was like, this person is perfect for this part, and they're at your agency. And there's somebody I think that, if you put them in your movie, that could be, cool and exciting in a way that's not just creatively works,
right.
but, how you
and
put
in the
things
back
together.
of your head, I'm sure you're thinking like, oh, I met this agent at this party, or like they're friends of someone else, or
Sure.
things like that. There's a little bit of that calculus to it.
Right.
as well,
And so then you send it to their agent, and their agent says, oh, yeah, I like this. And, after a couple of people say that, I imagine over at an agency, it's like sort of gets yep, we all collectively agree this is decent enough that, we'll send it to people. And I think...
And are you sending like a paragraph or a treatment or a pitch or like a short film you made or
sending
anything?
a script and a letter, like a script and a personal note to that actor.
To whomever.
Right. And
As
your
to-
letter says like, Dear Macaulay, I would like to,
Yeah,
offer
it's
you
just,
this part.
like, Dear Eller, like, this is how I see the role. This is like what I've seen of your past work and why I think you would be right in the role. Like, would you get on a call with me and let me sort of, talk you through it a little bit more? And so
I love that though. That last little line of just like something clear and direct, but also not something that's a huge commitment. You
Right.
know, like
Yeah.
a phone call, you're a jerk if you say no to a phone call,
Well, because
right?
I usually say like,
Right.
meet me in Hawaii
Yeah.
for 1 week of discussions.
yeah.
And people usually turn me down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the case of Eller, he read it and he liked it, and we got on well enough during the phone call that, by the end of the call, he's like, cool, I'm in, let me know. And so I think...
And
like,
you don't have like a shoot date or money
no,
or anything.
at this point, we were just trying to like assemble a package, as they say, like just trying to put, James was our Godfather EP, trying to put some cast in it that would work creatively, that also might get people.
And you already had Justin.
And no, I went to Justin a little bit later. I forget exactly who came in when, but I think Eller was the first person that came on board.
And we had like first kind of a different cast because in 2016 we like cast it up, and at the time I wasn't really involved more than I guess being like a supportive spouse. And our
Audrey
friend,
also created my lookbook,
I did.
Oh, are you
I did
serious?
do the
which
lookbook.
was like
And is that something
exceptional, and we would send that as well, and people loved that, and it
Yeah.
looked great.
Oh, cool. What was in the lookbook? Like what?
It was like kind
What'd you
of a
cover?
like visual like palette wetter of like what are you gonna like experience, what are you gonna feel like really quickly and visually. So it was like some kids like in inner tubes going down the Russian River, like a postcard of it. Like it felt kind of nostalgic and like kind of basic text that just kind of brought you through the storyline, and it worked. Like I felt like we really worked on it and worked well together, and
Yeah.
it seemed to kind of summarize and be a compliment to the script,
Yeah, and it
for
gave you
people
the
that need
feel-
like the Quibi version of reading a script, like they need a visual, quick, like
The quick bite version.
the quick bite, yeah,
Snackable
exactly,
content.
exactly.
And did you have like characters like?
Yeah, I
You-
did like kind of character with the actors we wanted. So we had Eller at the time. So I put Eller and kind of did like character pages. So it showed, like I feel like it had like a kind of quick sentence about the character and what they wanted, basically. Like what was their motivation.
But more tonal than it was.
It was
really
all
walking-
meant to be
yeah.
tonal. So like you could almost like wash your eyes over it and get it. And you could also kind of read it, and it wasn't too many words, and it
And
was
just
very
flip
like
through it and you
visual.
got it. Yeah.
It almost
Get a
looked like
feel
a
for what the movie
Taschen
would
book,
be.
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
that like you can kind of just like whip through
Sure.
pages and just feel
Right.
like you're like, ooh, I'm getting something. I don't know what, but I'm getting it. So
Yeah.
that was kind of what I was trying to go for.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I feel like we've actually heard that as a new trend in terms of lookbooks. It's much less about like walking people through things as
Well,
like
you-
a pitch deck.
It's
Right.
you
Yeah.
can't keep people's attention, and also the point is I felt very strongly, especially because it was like a music movie and it was about friends, and we had really strong comps. Like we were comping to movies that were very identifiable, and like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Dazed and Confused, and like those have such strong kind of like audio visual reference, so we could kind of
like you say those two comps and you're like, oh yeah, I get it.
Oh yeah, I get this movie. Yeah. Exactly. So it was.
Well, can I ask you, did people ask, because something I run into when like I'm trying to think of comps and trying to pitch things, and especially kind of bigger narrative projects, is like, it's kind of like this and it's kind of like this, but it's its own unique special thing. Like how do you pitch what's special about it,
Yeah, I mean,
that Fast Times didn't
it's
do.
always that tricky thing, right? Everybody wants the same thing but different. So it's, I don't know what the specifics of that were, but it was.
It's contemporary,
right? It's contemporary. Yeah. We were like,
right.
It's inspired by movies like
it's
American
more about
Graffiti,
like millennials was more maybe what you could
generation,
say. But I guess
and it's a bit of a sales tool at the same time, so it's not exactly what the movie's going to be, but like Audrey was saying, it's meant to evoke a specific feeling, when you're flipping through it, where you can see like, okay, I understand sort of what I would experience if I were watching this movie. But what we did was we put a cast together. So like I had a phone call with Eller. I forget exactly how with Chatwin, if I sat down with him or if I got on a call, like people that were in town, that were in LA, I would like sit and have coffee, and and certain people took a little bit more to get on board. Like, sometimes I would have to get on the phone with the manager afterwards and talk them through things, or, send a couple follow-ups to the agents.
You also took people to the chateau and had like, a $25 cup of coffee with them. And it actually, I think, went pretty far, oddly. Like there was something kind of like lovely about the classic Hollywood, for the people that was like fun.
You're talking about actors, you weren't taking like people's reps or like
no, but like meeting at the chateau, like having it be
it's très fancy.
Yeah. And it's very fancy, but again, it's only like $25.
Exactly.
Right. And also more than anything there, you can just sit for like 3 hours and, with your tea and, and you can kind of feel in the walls that movies have been made here, it puts you in the vibe. But like, there was somebody, and like Audrey was saying, we put together our first cast, and then only certain people were available when we put the movie together again 2 years later. But like, there was an actress that we got on great. We had like a 3-hour meeting, and then she was like, I actually want to play this different part. And so
Victoria Justice.
It wasn't Victoria. And so I got on the phone with the agent. They're like, she loved you, but she wants to play a different part. And I was like, this is why that doesn't work for me, and here's why she works for this part, and blah, blah, whatever. And then I went to bed, and I like sprung up at like 1:45 in the morning, and I was like, is he going to be able to like convey exactly what I said? So I just wrote it all out in an email so that he could forward it. And then, and then she came on board too. And, so basically what happened is we put this first cast together, we took it out and shopped it to companies that would like theoretically make a movie like this.
And do you know your budget at this point?
Yeah, we did, or we knew what we wanted.
And you were trying, it's like a conservative budget, right? Like you're paying people like scale-ish and...
Yeah, exactly. It's like the shoestring that we thought we could do it on until we realized there was a way to make it even shoestringier.
You have smaller feet, basically.
Right, yeah. And funny enough, we met with a company that said they would do it for close to what our actual budget was, but they couldn't see how to get the budget we had done down to that number. So I think that if I knew then what I know now, I would have been able to parcel it back and get further. But I don't even know that I was totally ready to make the movie then. So anyway, it just kind of sat there. Like it was cast, and we sent it to every company that in town that like maybe would have made it, and it didn't get made. And we had Audrey's pregnant through that period of time, and then we had our daughter, and I was just like, the Seth Mell storyline sort of took on a new meaning for me, and I was just would walk Amelia up and down in the hills near our house, just thinking like,
is that your daughter's name?
Yeah, Amelia.
Oh, that's my daughter's middle name.
Oh, really?
Yes, named after our late dog, Emily. Anyway,
what I love about this story, though, that's so interesting, especially now that we know there's a happy ending of having made the movie, right? Is that like it's hard to make a movie, right?
It's very hard to
so
make,
hard.
especially your first movie.
And I think that there are people listening at home who maybe are in a different market or like aren't as accomplished as you were when you first started making this movie, right? Like didn't have an acting career behind them, didn't have an agency.
Hadn't
Right.
been on set for like
Right.
hundreds of days.
Right.
Seen
Yeah.
like the best directors
Yeah.
directing,
Yeah.
doing it.
And there's such solace in knowing like it's hard no matter what, guys.
It is.
It's super hard. You should try to get Brad Pitt or Jake Gyllenhaal or somebody
It's
super
still
famous
hard.
in your movie, and then you can make like a $5 million movie. No, I mean,
No.
then you still, but
It's
seriously,
still
but
hard.
then you
I
can
mean,
still make
I
a
work
small
at a
movie.
company now that makes multiple $1 million, like tens of millions of dollars of movies, whatever you say, and it's still hard. You still face the same, you might not have the financial issues, but everybody's still kind of facing the same creative questions and like personality questions and the whole thing. It's
Well,
amazing.
making a movie is a risk.
Yeah,
And
it's like
someone's
a
gotta-
birth.
It's very
It's like
risky.
it's like there's something traumatic that has to happen that like gets you to the other
Mm-hmm.
side.
So you two literally
So-
gave birth
to a movie.
Well,
to
I
a
didn't
person.
give birth.
Well, as a couple, as
I
a
very much
collective,
did not give
you are
birth.
parents, I guess is what
Yeah.
I mean to
Yes.
say, right?
And
then you were like,
Amelia
let's
was
get back on the horse. Let's do
well,
it.
Amelia was 3 months old, and I ended up through a friend in New York meeting a producer out of Atlanta, and I sent her the script, and she was like, "I love this. Let's try to figure out how to get this made." And so she came out here, and we met with a couple financiers, or so they said,
Yeah.
and
This is where the plot thickens.
They
this
said.
this is where the plot thickens. So
Who introduced you to the financiers?
Our producing partner.
Our producing partner, yeah, and she met them through
Through
friends,
someone
and
else,
we
yeah,
were
it
just
was-
the whole, as you do, you overturn every single rock. Like if you have a conversation with somebody's uncle who thought maybe he might be interested, like just play it out, always play it out. Like there's nothing. The only risk you feel is, that you might feel a little bit foolish. And
Your $25 cocktail.
You're going to feel very
Exactly.
foolish anyway.
Yeah.
throughout, a lot of times throughout the course of being your first movie.
Did you ever shoot like a proof of concept or do any of those kind of middle steps to try
No.
to show people
I
anything?
didn't shoot a proof of concept, and I didn't shoot a short. And I actually got really good advice about not shooting a short. They were like, "Well, if you shoot a short, it has to go and win a bunch of things.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
it's almost better to not have it and to have the cast that you have than to have a short that didn't, win every single
Sundance or
festival."
whatever, yeah.
Exactly. Right.
I think because you had the cast that you
because
had.
you had the cast, right? If you
Right.
didn't have the cast, a proof of concept might have helped you to get that cast. But we used Audrey's lookbook as essentially the proof of concept. So we met these two financiers. One was meant to come in for pre-production costs, and then the second was going to come in for the lion's share of the budget. And
Which, by the way, was under $1 million.
Yeah.
Like,
Still scrappy. Yeah.
yeah,
very
scrappy.
scrappy,
Yeah.
scrappier than it was like 60% of what we had wanted initially, or something
Right,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Net, of course.
And just SAG non-union, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, we cast up again. Some people were still available. Some weren't. We went through the same rigmarole again, with certain people that, recasting, whatever. We set our start date. We did an operating agreement for the LLC, which is something that we should definitely get into
Oh, yes.
to warn people.
I have some advice.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We have
about-
some advice.
setting-
Serious advice.
Should we
Stuff
just
up.
should we just do it now?
Yeah.
I mean,
What's the advice?
Okay.
Let's hear it.
So what is an operating agreement?
What
first
is
of all?
What is an LLC? What is business? Basically,
What is
if
business?
you get into business with somebody you don't know, and you sign
Like if you start a podcast or something.
No, like if
Right.
you go online and get an LLC and just innocently on the government website,
Sure,
you just
sure.
type
Right.
in a name, you
LegalZoom,
get a little
maybe.
email
Yeah.
back. You don't
Amelia's
realize
Toys Inc.
exactly. Really innocent. You don't realize that it's very easy to do that. It's extremely difficult to parcel up something that then has value, like a movie, and the rights and the ownership. And if, unfortunately, when you get involved with somebody who has malicious intent, you're in a position where they have legal rights. And you have to go through that system. And so we found ourselves basically in a position where you never want to put your investor on your LLC.
Right.
You want them to be a party to it, right?
Aren't there like operators or like controlling members?
There's like general partners and limited partners.
Yeah, managing members and then members.
managing members.
So like managing members are people who are originally on the LLC that own the shares, and generally it's like your producer will own a portion of it, and then your investors pool will own another portion. And
so if you had to do it over again, for instance,
so what we did was moronically, this investor guy who actually didn't have any money, and when I asked him for like proof of funds, he showed me like a $12 million like screenshot on his phone that was clearly
fake,
not his, right? And
of like a Bank of America statement,
right? So we went into like a law firm here, and they were like, "Okay, so what do you want to do?" And we basically gave him half the movie without him having put the money in,
because he was one of the sole operators.
Because he was the financier,
he was
right?
the financier.
So he was. We were under the It was our understanding that he was going to fund the movie and therefore was going to own half, which is perfectly fine. If somebody funds your whole movie, give them half of it.
Yeah.
But he didn't, and
there was no provision if he didn't.
And there was no provision in it to say that he's in breach if he doesn't. And so the only little bit of wiggle room was an asterisk next to his name and share that said it could be reducible by capital contributions.
So any other investors would reduce his portion, which inevitably he never put any money in, so he actually didn't have any shares.
Right, but then there's also things that say, certain things need to be decided anonymously, so there's this gray area. Can you bring in other investors without everybody agreeing to that?
Without his permission, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah. So basically what happened was we had this first investor who we diminished his share by, which was everybody was under the understanding that was going to happen. We got down to Noonan, Georgia. We cast, obviously, and we started spending this money.
And you had your whole cast there. You're putting everyone up here.
Yeah, well, first we went down for pre-production, but yeah, we were there crewing up and getting ready to bring everybody down.
Making the movie.
Making the movie.
Yeah.
And,
full steam ahead.
We were blowing through the pre-production financing, as you do in pre-production. And slowly this other chunk of money was not coming in. And so I started...
Like this is a second investor.
This is the second investor. This is the guy who was meant to come in for the line.
Who's like, I'm going to write you a check tomorrow. And then,
exactly.
It's in the
He
mail.
kept
And you have things to focus
stuff
on.
like that.
Right?
He kept saying,
you've got a movie to make, right?
We got a movie to make.
Stuck in South America.
Right.
My money's...
Yeah, I can't get
it. I can't get it into a U.S. bank, but don't worry.
Right, it's
and he
coming.
would get on
We're gonna
the
get a
phone
loan
with us. It wasn't
through-
like we were being ghosted.
It was so bizarre. It was
really...
like emails back and forth. And so anyway, so we got down there and slowly, this money's not coming in. So actually during the first scheduling meeting, we hadn't been able to present SAG with the information they needed to show that we were fully funded. And we couldn't both get the camera package and do the SAG deposit with the money that we had left. So I put what was the first of nearly 6 figures on an American Express card to get the camera package, and also started freaking out. Like, I'm like, wait, what is happening?
Yeah,
like,
you just saying that out loud freaked me out.
it was, I was like sick.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
But
you're not a producer at this point, Audrey.
No, I'm basically like, I'm home with my
Oh,
daughter.
you're not in Georgia.
No,
I'm
sorry.
in Georgia. We had like
what you rented.
We had like a
The
U-shaped...
Chateau Marmont of Georgia. Of
Of
Noonan.
Noonan.
No, it was actually quite nice. But like we had a U-shaped like townhomes that we rented. One was a production office, one was a housing unit, and they had a living area downstairs and then beds upstairs. And so we had people sleeping upstairs, and then we had the production office on the first floor. So we were all very close and like could just walk around. And
So
Right.
you were at camp, basically.
we were all at camp, which
Yeah.
actually every movie is kind of like.
Totally.
Yeah.
Let's be
super
real.
fun.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's like middle school camp.
Yeah.
And so, no, I wasn't really involved. I was like, because I'm an artist. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll help in the art department. I made like some bumper stickers that had to be on cars and like did some like window decals and like was kind of just like, kind of just doing it for fun and
Living it
being
up.
involved.
Sounds
It was really
good.
nice.
Yeah.
It was
But
actually
probably sharing in Joe's stress as well.
Sure.
Yeah, and it really didn't dawn on me until it did, which
Right.
it was pretty stark.
So
and
I was like, all right, well, let's put the Amex to work. Let's see how much money I can put on this thing.
yeah, and I gave my like dinky little personal cards, and we were just like, sure, yeah.
Until you can get your money
pay
out
us
of South
back.
America. Right, you'll just pay us back. It's all good.
No worries.
And then then, and then we missed payroll for the first week.
From SAG. Yeah, we missed.
No, first we missed crew payroll. And we were like, hey, man, like, this isn't cool. Like, I don't care where your money's stuck. Like, it needs to be here. Like, this was the deal.
I've got rent to make.
And he's the sole financier.
He's supposed to be the sole.
There were two.
So the first person basically got us going, and then the second was.
Right. And so, anyway, this money's not showing up. So I email him, and I'm like, hey, this isn't cool. Like, what's going on? And he sends me back sort of this like livid email, like the guy with the money makes the timelines and like you can't force this and whatever. And then I was like,
also this guy didn't speak English, so very certain he didn't ever read the script. Like
he certainly never read the script.
He couldn't communicate even basic English, which is fine. Obviously, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And he had a translator, and like it was fine. But it was like there was a communication barrier.
Right. So we're on Google Translate.
Yeah, like trying to like write in Spanish, like so that we can get the nuance and like the information. Right. And it was very.
And so he sends me back this email, and I'm like, oh, this is bad. Like this feels bad.
But do you think he was ever for real?
No.
I think this was the most elaborate scheme to get a selfie with Victoria Justice in the history of the world.
Like, truly, to be like...
Honestly, that's the only thing.
Did he come to set?
Yes.
He tried.
Well, he tried. He came to Georgia, and he brought some other guy who was supposed to actually come in for the money.
But we had to put his daughter in the movie.
But we had to put the guy's daughter in the movie as a featured extra, and then... But this was after, so basically like on Halloween of 2017, which I'll never forget because I made my daughter an adorable costume that basically I didn't even see her. I saw her in a turtle. It was so cute. I didn't even see her in it because we realized SAG shut us down.
Day before Halloween,
SAG shut us down. It was like, you have to stop. You have to stop. Like, your actors can't go to set. It's over.
Right. You haven't put
and
the
SAG
depositor.
We just hadn't paid their payroll. So, we hadn't paid them.
Get under.
And SAG, and God bless the unions, they've done amazing things, but they are hard.
When it's time to drop the hammer, they're down.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And I've been a card-holding SAG member since I was 8 years old. Like,
I'm
I benefited tremendously.
Too,
it was so humiliating and awful, obviously.
Yeah.
And you know,
but that's nice. I mean, even when you guys said earlier that you told your actors, like, hey,
they were like, are you sure? Can we just show up? Can we just do it? And we were like, no, like, absolutely not. You cannot. Like, so at that point, I was
sure
like,
you've profited from being on the other side.
Of course.
Sure
And at that point, the first financier who had put in the initial amount of money, who I had never even met in person, I had been calling him saying, hey, this other guy isn't putting the money in. Like, you're going to lose
all
everything.
your money.
Like, you're going to, we were on day 8 of the shoot. Like, we don't have a movie.
Like, in production, like actors on set.
Day 8 of filming.
Okay.
I was like, you are cooked. You've got to get here. So he had shown up the day before this happened. And he was like, oh, I'll talk to him and we'll figure it out and blah, blah, blah.
And you're not like calling Reese Witherspoon or the head of UTA or any of these people at this point.
We weren't calling anybody. I mean, I was pretty freaked out myself.
UTA was there for the casting and the go Joe.
But they had already tried to finance it themselves. You know what I mean?
See it awards.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they had tried to finance it through the traditional Los Angeles, like, infrastructure, right? And it hadn't worked out. So.
And it became a full indie movie, and that like we were completely responsible for the whole thing happening or not, which was very possible.
Yeah. So basically, what happened is we got shut down by SAG. We called this guy again. Our first financier, our real financier, Charlie Maynardi, God bless his heart, was there, and it was just clear, like, we're not going any further. And like,
Charlie brought like cash with him, flew from like South America.
Charlie put in another like $22,000 or whatever.
Like he was just
brought cash in his suitcase.
Yeah, he literally brought cash in his suitcase. And we had to pay out. We had to pay out like our G&E department because they were like locking the trucks. They're like, we're not working. And I'm like, I get it.
And I get it, right? I'm like, you shouldn't work,
but
right?
like, can you please like finish the day?
So Charlie paid people like from his suitcase in cash to get through the day, and then we got shut. And then the next day we got shut down by SAG, so we were done. So I was like, we can't let anybody work anymore. Like, this money's not coming. Like, at that point, we were like, okay, it would be immoral to take one more step because I am positive this guy's completely full of it. You know what I mean? Like, before I was like, and you can't put payroll on a credit card. And at that point, I think I was up to like $90,000 on a credit card. So
Wait, do you tell James Ponzolt at this point where you're at?
almost. So we were kind of in like the war room in the production office, which was a bedroom. Our AD department was waiting outside, like figuring out, like, are we supposed to schedule for tomorrow? Like, are we doing a call sheet? And we came out around midnight. We were like, we're done. Like, we're not shooting tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to call like an 8:30 a.m. production meeting and just tell everybody, like, I'm so sorry.
Was that speech your best performance ever?
I was like, basically
Broken.
like, we're so sorry. Like, we're going to try to get you, like, obviously we're going to try to get everybody paid, for the work that you've put in. Like, we'll go back to LA with the footage and try to cut it together. But so that night I went home and like Googled bankruptcy and like how to get out of $90,000 worth of debt.
Yeah.
So I had a plan for that. And
this
then,
is so interesting though, because I don't, have we ever had a husband and wife team on the show? Certainly this feels like the most fully leveraged of any of the like in the trenches stories.
But I
we've
also
ever
think
heard.
what's so good about it is like it starts with like UTA. Like we hear you hear these stories when it starts with like, I saved up all my money and I got my aunt and I got that. Like, but you're starting kind of at the top and now you're like kind of gotten to the bottom.
Yeah, this
Oh,
is
yes.
the
We got
darkest night,
humbled
right? Yeah.
very
Yeah.
quickly.
Like you have this incredible cast and just like incredible people working on the project.
yeah. And they're just like in the Best Western and like the next town over, like wondering like what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Fairburn or something like
Yeah.
that.
I forget where it was.
Yeah, and we basically like they were like getting Halloween costumes,
Well,
and,
that
like,
was the-
hanging out and like getting
Right, so then-
stoned and like being fun and
Sure.
like being
I don't know if
To
drinking
be
and like
25
whatever. They
or
were-
whatever.
Right.
Life is
but
good.
Yeah.
But
So-
I want not to get too personal, but
Yeah.
where are you two at? Like, what at this moment? Like, you're a team, you're making this movie together, but you've still got like a young daughter. Your husband's like Googling bankruptcy.
Joe's like
what do you
trying
do?
to figure out how to get Amelia's college savings fund
Yeah.
liquidated.
Are
Yeah.
you both seeing
We
eye to
would've-
eye of like, oh, this is what we do, or
Audrey was so awesome. Like, she was just with me every step of the way. There was never, like, I feel like another partner could have been like, what the fuck did you do, you idiot? You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here? But it was never like that. And she hadn't even really formally stepped into, like, the producer position until that night / the next day, basically.
Yeah, I think it's when like I've like worked in like restaurants and I was a nanny and I was just like trying to like scrape by. I worked at bars in New York, and so like the kind of like, oh, there's a crisis, let's just step in and figure it out. Like part of my brain just kind of took over, and like I also was like, we're kind of the financiers at this point. Like we've put on a credit card like the
Right.
second bulk of the money. So like I want to know where it's being spent and exactly what's happening and why are we shut down? Why didn't we make payroll? Okay, what is that paperwork? Why are they asking for it? Do you have it? So it just became like then the producer role, which honestly, frankly, I didn't even know what a producer did. I couldn't have defined. I knew that they did something important and they were the ones that got the Best Picture Oscar. That was pretty much what I knew about producing when we were doing it. And then it was just like, then it's just problem solving. And it's basically a game of like ping pong, trying to get the ball away from you, trying to get the problem sorted or delegated to someone who can take care of it. And that's the other thing is I was realizing that like some people were in over their heads, you know what I mean? And were like taking on things that they shouldn't be and like weren't asking for help when they needed to be. And that was a huge thing was like when you're dealing with movies, if you can't deal with something and someone is offering help or, you know, take it, ask for it, like use the team, use the camp mentality of like, we're all here like surviving. Right. And I really found that empathy and honesty were like the biggest things that helped us through it because our crew could have easily walked away and been like, fuck you guys. Like, you're not going to pay us. You haven't paid us. Like, the likelihood that you're going to get this back together is like,
or even not even
none.
fuck you. Hey, I'm so sorry, guys. You know, that would have been reasonable also.
Yeah.
You know?
And it was actually quite the opposite. So what happened the next morning was we brought this like group together. Like I could barely speak. I was so upset. And I just said to everybody, like, this is, you know, what the story is. And like, this guy didn't actually have any money. We're done. I'm so sorry. And that's it. And then our cinematographer, Michael Fitzmaurice, was like,
He's like, I got some stock.
He's like,
we were like, what do you mean?
Yeah, he's like, I got all this Chevron stock I inherited from my grandpa,
like,
and
I
I
got
like hate
Bitcoin.
that I have money in this.
He's
And
like, I've always hated that it's been in Chevron.
Yeah.
I was like, it's just been
and he was
there.
like, what if I put in X? And we were like,
that
would be huge.
definitely help.
And then our costume designer, Aaron Knight, was like, hey guys, like, and everybody would come to us like privately, like without knowing about each other at first. Like, hey guys, I could put in this. My brother James, who came down to be our on-set PA, was like, hey, I'll give you
This, like,
everything
little bit
that
of
I
cash.
have.
Yeah, like-
Everyone's emptying out their pockets.
yeah.
And so
And we-
basically,
Got
what's
my baseball card from 1948.
So
Yeah.
what started as like an 8:30 a.m. production meeting to shut everything down turned into a 10 a.m. production meeting of, okay, we're going to keep going.
That is incredible.
It was
you guys.
insane. It was insane.
It really was.
And then
so awesome.
And so then basically like we called so it takes like a couple days to liquidate your stock, obviously. So, and the crew hadn't been paid and this was day 8. So we had to at
Convince
this point,
everybody
Audrey was
that-
like fully on board. So
I was
she
having
was
like meetings with like, I basically said like, anybody that wants to talk to me or us, like I will be the person to talk to, and like
Right.
I'll answer any questions that you
what
have.
do you owed? What do you need?
Yeah.
Like, and so basically we were saying like, these people that you've been working with the whole time, our stunt coordinator, Nick Decay, put in money as well right there. Wanda Morgenstern, our locations manager, put down her American Express card. We didn't have,
So
when we
crazy.
went down, I realized this in retrospect, when we went down, we wouldn't have had a way to pay for the cast to leave Georgia.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. To
We
fly
had
back.
booked
Yeah.
one-way
We wouldn't have been able
tickets
to
for
fly
everybody.
anybody
Yeah.
anywhere, which makes me sick to think about that.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
But
so,
you didn't know that, obviously.
I didn't know that.
No.
So anyway, so then basically Audrey and Michael and me and Charlie Maynardi and everybody was like said to, the crew, hey, so, and this was on Halloween. Amelia was like off with her grandmother, thankfully.
Yeah,
Shelley
my mom
Mitchell had,
flew in several
Yeah.
times and helped.
hey, so we're going to keep going. Like, we're going to be funded in a few days, partially funded in a few days, enough to keep going. Will you stick with us? Like, will you stay? Will you please stay? And like, you'll get paid. We'll make this right and whatever. And so, they did. And we were on splits when we went down. We were going into nights. So what we would do from there on is call like friends and family and anybody that like had money that wasn't nailed down that might want to invest in a movie. And then we would shoot, the whole night. So, and then we would, sleep in the next day until 11, and then we'd do the whole thing again. So
Whoa. You'd sleep into 11. I was up at 7 a.m.
with our daughter.
Yeah.
Right. But you
I
didn't have to
wasn't
be
up
on
all
set
night.
all night. Yeah.
Well, she did wake me up a lot.
And so meanwhile, the cast at this point, they are in Atlanta shopping for Halloween costumes,
Having a great time.
having a great time, just like enjoying each other's company and bonding. So when we
Like totally not knowing about it.
totally not knowing, like they're calling their agents, like trying to figure out what's going on, but they're kind of also like,
But they're like 24 or 23, and they're like,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
so
fine.
they're
Yeah,
in
their
Atlanta.
responsibilities are pretty small at this
Right.
point.
So
Yeah,
by
as they
the,
should be.
so by the end of the night,
And none of your cast is doing this for the money. They all want to
right,
be
they're
in
all
the
there
movie.
for scale. They all
Of
want to do the
course.
part. Yeah. And so by the end of the night, I got sent over with my little brother James who at this point had become an executive producer, to their hotel to dole out per diem and sort of tell them what had happened. And they had found a fire pit like in the back of this Best Western, and they were just like grilling burgers in like wigs and like these ridiculous costumes. And they were like, oh my God, like Joe, like we feel so bad for you. Like James, you're a hero. Like, it was nice. And then, but it was constantly treading water from there on out, because it would be like, okay, my buddy who's a lawyer in Paris says he can do 20. Like my cousin says he can do 25. Like my other friend says he can do 7. Like so many different people that were like, oh, this is a company that's going to come in and they're going to bail us out, and they didn't. And this one could and they didn't.
So many
And so,
sharky kind of people that were
Yeah,
like,
they're
like
sure,
loan
we'll
sharky
give you like a
people.
loan for like $500,000
Sure.
at like 30%. We were
Right.
like, what?
Blood's in the water.
But
basically.
worse
yeah,
than that.
for
Yeah,
sure.
like
oh,
way
it was
grosser than that.
really,
Yeah.
But it's-
fees and
Yeah, the bigger the number, like the less likely it would
Exactly.
go through, and the
So
more
it was
hits,
like we
right?
were chipping it away.
Yeah.
And people
You
Your
had the
brother
Bernie
who's like,
Sanders
I got $2,000. He was good, right?
Right.
You know what I mean?
James spent way more than
Way more
2,000.
than
Yeah,
2,000.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
whatever. Yeah.
No,
But yeah, exactly. And so it was like,
Well, let me ask you this kind of weird question. At any point, are you like looking at your shot list, looking at your locations, looking at your shoot schedule, and figuring out how you can chisel out expenses?
when I was shooting, it was like a Zen meditation. Like when I was filming, all of this was gone. Like I had prepped this movie in my mind for 2 years. I had actually switched out my DP a week before we started shooting because I heard too much like that's going to be hard. And I was like, I can't have that. Like you're not going to just lock this off on sticks and do coverage. Like that's not the movie we're shooting. We're going to be moving this camera a lot. It's going to be a big like orchestrated thing. And like, I need everybody to be down. So as long as I was filming, I was good. Like, there's of course certain days that you go over or you don't make your day or you lose a shot here or there. That's inevitable, but it wasn't like, well, if we don't swing a lens, then then my movie will be funded. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It like didn't matter at that point. And we were flying through these days.
We also had the
like,
benefit of like you were shooting like a concert basically in like this hall. So
Yeah.
there was like great music that musicians, they weren't live playing, but they were kind of live playing.
yeah,
there
they
was
were
just like
the people who had written the music were there.
we're there,
performing
like
it.
because
Yeah.
the bands that played in the movie, we hired actual bands that we used their songs. So it was like kind of jovial energy, like despite this kind of intensity.
It was a wonderful,
the
wonderful
shooting
energy
was
on
like
set. It was
actually
great.
amazing.
Yeah.
It was,
But you weren't
the
like
antidote.
scrambling for like free extras or free venues or
Oh,
free.
we just couldn't pay the extras for the last. So basically, what happened is then we funded enough to get through the shoot, which was the critical thing to do because if you can't get all of your footage in the can, you really have no chance of making a movie.
Right.
So it was the goal. What I remember it feeling like was basically just finish.
Yeah.
That feels
Get
like the
to
finish
day
line.
18. Yeah. And that was the finish line.
Yeah.
And it was until we still had to figure out now how to pay the last week payroll, how to pay the extras that we
Pay
had
the rest of the like equipment rental
brought in.
purchase,
Right. Pay off the
packages.
equipment rentals. Like I still had 90 grand on a credit card and Audrey had still a bunch of money on credit cards. Like how's that going to get paid off? And also, like Raymond Wood, our editor, put up $6,000 to pay the sound
'cause
mixer
they were
so that we
holding
could
sound hostage until they got paid. And again, every time
understandable.
we talk about this, it's like as you should,
Right.
Like
As you
you
should.
should get paid.
You shouldn't
Yeah.
turn over your sound cards until you get paid.
Like
Right.
you're
I
talking
would-
about the production sound recorder.
We're talking about
Yes.
the mixer who basically
Was
for
on
his
set.
team was like, yeah, we're not giving you that sound until you like give us.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Completely
it's fine. It's
understandable.
on this SD card,
Yeah.
Right.
but like pay
And
But,
for
like,
it.
pay us.
I'm
Yeah.
in his boat. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
of course. And so Ray was like, well, how about
But
you
you're
just
not
hold...
downloading the footage and the audio at the end of every
You
day?
can't. They have it. They have it literally
So it was,
on
like,
their
it was the
equipment.
final 2 days.
Oh, okay.
So whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get into the edit with Ray and we still have, we still have to raise about 40% of the budget.
To finish the movie.
To finish the movie because, yeah. So anyway, this great company called Black Hall, Ryan Millsap and Eric Hodge, we got into conversations with them while we were in the edit. And
Who we
sort of-
met through Tara.
through Tara and
producing
Sarah,
partner.
their producer, and we're sort of going back and forth on terms and trying to figure it out. While at this point we moved from Noonan to Atlanta. Audrey's looking after Amelia. I am in the edit from like noon to 2 a.m. pretty much every day.
All right, because you're cutting in Georgia.
So we're cutting in Georgia, yeah. And so while we're working on the cut, we're
Basically negotiating.
trying to figure out how to put
terms.
this money together and still bringing in like little friends and family,
So are all these
contributions.
people owning pieces of the movie, like on
Yeah.
the LLC? So you have
Oh,
like
yeah.
50 investors or something?
We have
like
17
15
EPs.
Do we have 17?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And not all of them are investors. I think 15 out of the 17 are investors.
Yeah.
And so, so we're cutting the movie and then, we've got something pretty close to done and Eric comes through and he's like, oh yeah, it's great. And so we still had to hammer out terms, but eventually we got to the end of this negotiation with Black Hall and
Which again felt like just like a gift of God. Like,
Right.
Whoever. Like it was a lucky, thank God
it was just
it happened.
the
Because
perfect timing. Like they wanted their name on a
They-
movie. They're a physical production company. They own like
They
massive
own like
studios.
studios that Marvel and Netflix rent out.
Gotcha.
They come from
They
like an
wanted to
industrial
do-
real estate
they're like-
background,
yeah.
and so it was like they were kind of wanting the foray into the film industry.
Right.
But it must be so stressful, right? Because right, the first cut of a movie is always like unwatchable, right? It's so bad, and that's the point where you're trying to get investors, right? Where you just are putting these scenes together.
Well, what's funny is I never had that first cut experience because basically what happens, I sat down with Ray. Well, first of all, this investor guy now decides, the fake investor that was still on the LLC decides he's going to sue. He's going to sue. He wants his movie. It's his movie, even though he didn't put any money in. He showed up in Atlanta. I wouldn't let him on set. We hadn't paid the police for the lockups, so cops were showing up at uniformed cops were showing up at the production office, being like, "Where's our money?" Which was amazing. Again, this I laugh about it, but this is no disrespect to these like incredible people that worked on the movie and should have been paid on time. It's just like unbelievable when I'm retelling the story. And so this dude showed up in Atlanta and he was like so offended that him and his like supposedly rich friend that was going to put money in didn't get to come to set. But at that point I was like, you're the villain. Like,
Yeah, man, you almost ruined my
you
life.
ruined this. Like
Yeah.
if my crew hadn't stepped up and paid for the movie, like we would be screwed. You know what I mean? So you're not coming anywhere near the set. And I told the cops about it. They were like, well, we'll keep him off your set for you. And that really pissed him off. Apparently that got back to him. So this guy's got a lawyer and he's coming after us. Another cousin of mine.
But he has no rights except for his name is on the
He
LLC.
has rights to being part of the movie. He has like he could enjoin the movie
So,
technically.
Yeah, he could sort of enjoy it. He was
could just cause
supposed to get an EP credit. I was like, you're not getting that. He thought that he still should own 50% of the movie, even though he hadn't paid for it. He was really delusional and like sore about the whole experience. We had this extraordinary attorney, like Yale educated partner at a law firm that my cousin introduced me to, this investment attorney. I'm saying that wrong, but business attorney, who was like, I'll help you out. And he just gave us like so many tens of thousands of dollars of free legal advice,
services.
just sending like nasty grams back and forth. Like, I'm going to do this. You're going to do that. I'm going to do this. You're going to do that. And this went all the way through The Color, which is back here in LA.
So we're talking like if we filmed it in October, November, this is like
June, July,
June,
and
July.
didn't really fully settle until October. So
yeah.
So
a
anyway,
year
so this
later.
guy is threatening like legal stuff, which to me, I'm like, oh my God, like,
Yeah, this is insane.
Right.
Yeah.
This is insane. Like, and to your listeners, if somebody threatens to sue you, it is so expensive to sue somebody. Don't take them that seriously unless they have so much freaking money to just flush down the toilet. Like, so basically this guy, he had a local attorney out of Atlanta who just wanted to offload him as soon as possible. Then he got an LA based attorney, a real law firm. And they're sending, stuff back and forth. They're saying, we think we're entitled to XYZ. Like, we're saying you're not. They're saying, well, how about you settle and pay us this and give us an EP credit and give us these points on the movie. And at that point, Audrey, I was at one point like, well, maybe we should just, and Audrey was like, nothing. She was like, I would rather put that money in David Yates's pocket, David, the attorney who worked for us. I would rather put that money anywhere. Like, I would rather like put that in a litigator's pocket. Like, no way, this guy's not getting a dime.
It's like call his bluff.
Yeah.
It just felt like another scam. Like
Right.
that we were
Which
just
it was,
being
sure.
Yeah.
scared. And that's like people will do that, and especially when you're like young and you've only never done it before and you're new and they can take advantage of you. And he was like in his like 40s, early 50s maybe, and like so I just was like, call his bluff. He's weak, and thankfully I was.
Yeah, so
Right.
then, anyway, the operating agreement is such that you can only the person can either sign themselves off willingly, which he wasn't going to do. You can only forcibly remove him for the commission of a crime. It doesn't have to have been charged. He doesn't have to have been convicted, but the commission of a crime. So you can point to and say, hey, you did this thing, even though you didn't get caught. We know you did it, and we're deciding to boot you. And thankfully, he had written over $1 million worth of bad checks in South American countries. So we were like, that's check fraud. We said, we're going to boot you. How about you just sign yourself off and save yourself the trouble. And he had actually he had gotten a little bit of money from somebody else at the 11th hour and put a little bit of cash in. And we said, we always held on to that cash. Like, no matter what was happening, we held it. We're like, we're giving that back, which we didn't have to under the operating agreement. We could have actually absorbed it and had him come after us. But we said, we'll give it back. Sign yourself off. We'll give it back. So we got all of our investors to sign a thing that says we're gonna remove you. You're a crook. And this was like way deep through the process. So first we're in the edit. We've got no money still. Blackhall comes in after I was saying I never had the experience of a first cut. So Ray and I from day one, Ray's like, all right, it'll take me about 5 days to put together a first assembly. I'm like, well, what the hell am I going to do? Like, let's just start cutting this movie. So we started cutting the movie right then and there. So
kind of in sequence,
so
basically?
We just like opened up scene 1 and I'm like, oh no, I want you to cut when he puts his hand down on the thing. And Ray's like, oh great. Okay. So we never had the experience of like me going back in and being like, oh, that's not the movie I made. What did you do? Like I was just there with him picking every single cut the whole time.
I'm so jealous.
Which I loved. It was great.
Yeah.
And Ray and I like got on like gangbusters. We had a great time.
You didn't have like a well of depression, right? Like,
no, I had an ocean of depression the whole time, but it wasn't because of the first
for different
cut.
reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get through this. We get sort of close to Christmas, and Eric comes and sees the movie, and he likes it. And
you felt like when you were shooting it, even despite all that stress and stuff, that you were getting like exactly what you wanted.
Totally. With the compromises you make, we don't have a black table for you. It's a brown table. Fine. I don't care. Great. Like,
and do you do a lot of takes? Do you get super deep with the actors?
Like, usually between like 3 and 5 takes. Yeah. Yeah. Between 3 and 5 takes. And like, I like to see what somebody's going to bring to the table before I start messing with them. I'm not like up in people's face with like a 14-inch clipboard. Like, so when your grandfather was born, like, I want you to think about the Ozu film, like, you know what I mean?
And is it
like,
because people have done that to you and you realize that it wasn't that helpful?
Yes, it's a nightmare, yeah. And it's first-time filmmakers that have done it to me. And you just suck all the magic out of the room. Like, it's all gone. And a movie is not what you thought of 3 years ago in your head and you wrote down in your binder. A movie is what is happening in front of you. So shoot it, you know what I mean? Like, shoot it and tweak it and work with it. Like, have it shot listed, know what your sequences are and like how you're going to button your transitions and everything, like know what you're doing, but like don't like burden these poor actors with like your neurosis. Like you cast them,
that is
good.
A common theme, having talked to a handful of actors at this point.
Yeah.
That is the number one thing they all have said. Like the more TV you're on, the more you're like, just let me do my thing, please.
Well,
let me show you what's up first.
Never had, like, I worked with some really great, like legendary directors. I never had them come up to me with like a binder being like, so in this scene, like,
let me show you a picture of
right, I'm going to show you like a picture of like my like first pet. And I'm going to tell you why it was a pet. It wasn't a pet, it was a friend.
Right.
And and you're just sort of like, dude, you are crushing time right now.
Sure.
Like you are really killing time, giving me entirely unactionable things. Like, do you need this faster? Do you need this slower? Like, do you need more emotion? Do you need the, there's ways to get all that. And things that, like, I didn't know, like, I watched myself screw actors up, like, left, right, and center on my movie, like, going up and giving a note, and, like, I look in the edit, and I'm like, oh, wow, you totally fucked them up. Like,
chunked it, yeah.
Yeah, they were doing great until you chimed in, and then they've got no idea what they're doing all of a sudden, like, way to ruin that. So if you're doing that before your first take, you're really, you're working against yourself.
Also, like, it was, like, cast well, like, the people kind of, to normal degree, like they were the characters, like they were very close to the characters. It wasn't like a huge leap.
And you talked about that with that one of your actresses wanted to play a different role, but you're like, right. You are this character.
Cast good actors who are good at the parts. And like, I didn't make people audition as much as I could. I just like said, you're good, you're right for it, like go for it. Like I didn't want to like sit in a room again with a clipboard and make 5,000 notes and see 800 different actors.
Clipboards.
Hate clipboards. I hate binders.
But you're familiar with all of their work before you cast them.
Yes, and I knew that I had seen all their work. A lot of people I had just like almost like I called their reps out of the blue and said, "Hey, I know Callan McAuliffe from I Am Number 4, and I also saw him in Stanford Prison, and it's been so hard for me to figure out who's right for this. And I watched an interview with Callan, and I think Callan's right. Like, is he avail? Yes. Send him the script. He
You're
likes
just
to
calling them
set a
yourself
lunch.
personally.
I'm calling the managers, yeah, or like emailing them like late at night.
So you're not going through your reps to get to them. You're just
No, at that point I was
IMDb proing.
Shameless.
just IMDb proing. Just
I love that. That's also, we hear about like the note oftentimes, and it's never been, distilled the way you just said it. It's like, oh, here are the things I love you for. This is why you're good. I did my research.
right, yeah.
That's it.
This is why I like you.
Yeah.
This is why you're right for the part. Like, let's talk about it,
Yeah.
So we cut the movie. We only had really 7 weeks to edit it. We took a Christmas break. Justin Lerner was tremendously helpful. He helped me cut 10 minutes out of the movie. He was on the phone with me for like 6 hours. I mean, I got a lot of great notes from a lot of great people.
I heard he lives right across the
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you did. Right.
Justin was just telling us how great his notes were.
They really were. They were great, man.
They were
And
very actionable.
They were
which
so
was,
good.
like,
He's like,
just easy
stop
to-
telling me at the end of every scene what's going to happen in the next scene, and then telling me at the end of the next scene
Hey.
what's going to happen in the next scene.
It's a good note. Yeah.
He's like, you started your movie 3 times, you ended your movie 4 times. Great,
Sure, yeah.
really good stuff. He was
Yeah.
like, don't freak out, but you need to cut 10 minutes out of this movie, and I think I cut like 8.
a little tough love is important too, like,
Totally.
from someone who knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And is Jordan involved in any of these?
Jordan, the writer?
Yeah.
No, not really. I just kind of was like running with it at that point. And every time somebody would come on, like I did all the rewrites at a certain point. Like I was just like, okay, like I have to be able, like I can't
Be
expect
beholden.
you to be able to write what I'm saying, but I need this to be written so that people on set can do the things that.
Right.
I'm
If they were
expecting
there
them to do.
experiencing all that.
Yeah,
things, they
and
were
like
experiencing-
when
they
I
get it,
cast
but-
Annalie Tipton, right? Like
Yeah.
Annalie, I knew her manager through somebody, and I was like, hey, can we chat? Whatever. Annalie got on the phone with me. I'm positive she was going to tell me no. Like I could just tell from the way that she was speaking in the beginning. I was like, oh, she's like doing a favor and she's going to pass. And like 90 minutes or like 2 hours later, whatever, I was like, I hear all your concerns about this part. Like you are 1000% right. Like this is not.
Wait, you're talking to her for like an hour and a half and you think she's going to pass?
Well, I started to think maybe I can get her by the end of the
Sure.
conversation, but like at first I was like, I know that she's going to pass. And I always say this in Q&As and she just like laughs and looks at the ground. So my guess is she was going to pass. And so, but like when I got off the phone with Annalie, I was like, oh, I've got some heavy lifting to do. And we cracked that script back open and Audrey helped me to rewrite that character pretty much entirely.
Which, like, the character, just because we've mentioned it a couple times, she's like, finds out that she's pregnant and like doesn't know if her like partner wants to have a baby or doesn't. They're young and like, but not young enough where it's not doable. But it's like that question of, is this my problem? Is this our problem? This should be our problem. And we had just had a baby and we're pretty young, so it was like felt very close to home.
Yeah, we
and
talked through it.
Yeah, like we kind of, I don't know, I was able to give some insight as to.
Yeah, Audrey came over with Annalie's first line in the movie, which is
Hello.
no, what is it? I don't even remember. It's this was not the
It's
plan.
not the plan. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a good line.
So okay, so anyway, so we cut this movie. We go back to LA. We're coloring it. We're still in this like legal back and forth, and the guy's like, "All right, I'm gonna file for
Arbitration.
arbitration, right?" And so at that point, our attorney in Atlanta was like, I can't litigate for you. Like, I'm sorry,
Sure.
but like,
Yeah.
good luck." And we're like, "All right." So at this point, we were just waiting.
And you don't have like an attorney as an actor?
Yeah, I have an entertainment lawyer, but like,
He couldn't care.
It's a different.
I mean,
yeah.
I actually have a new entertainment lawyer now than
Who's
I did at the time. It was wonderful. Yeah, but like again, I wouldn't even the entertainment lawyer I have now. Like, I would never expect him to be able to handle this. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
well, he just has.
He does
a
like
ton of
contracts
clients,
and
right.
deals.
right, you
He's
do
not like
entertainment
litigating.
law.
Like,
He's not doing
yeah.
investments or litigation.
Right, right.
So, anyways, this guy's like, I'm gonna sue you. We're like, great, throw it on the pile. We're gonna finish the movie. We finished the movie and we set a buyer screening for, funny enough, Halloween. And
during AFM.
A year later.
during AFM, right?
A year later.
A year later, and so it's like June. This guy says he's gonna sue. Our attorney's like, boot him. Like, that's enough. Like, boot him. Like, he's a crook. Get him off. So we do all the paperwork to boot him, and we send it to his attorney, and we don't hear anything back. And so I call like David Yates in Atlanta. I'm like, what's up? He's like, I don't know. Like, we sent it to him. Like, hear anything back? He's like, I'll call the attorney. Calls the attorney. The attorney's like, we don't work with the guy anymore. He stiffed us. He never paid.
Of course.
And so
Of course.
David's like, well, they're trying to give him this cash back. Like, you should get paid that. Like, you should take that.
You should get him to sign this paper,
Right.
and then you can take
And
his
so
money, basically.
the day before our buyer's screening, he signed himself off the movie, and we cut him the check. So we were able, and we had deferred. We had to defer our entire music budget,
which was significant because it's a music
Right.
movie.
which was significant. And the thought process was, we'll defer it to the distributor, like not knowing that like you might not get an MG, like you don't know.
I feel like that's kind of like old-fashioned advice.
It's such
Yeah.
bad advice.
It used to be great,
But-
right? In 1996, it was
Right.
awesome.
Totally.
when they're
yeah.
like, 130,
Sure,
no
40.
problem. Yeah, whatever you
Right,
want.
where people are buying Clerks for $4 million
Yeah,
bucks.
exactly,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like,
In Spikes, Mike's, Slackers, and Dykes, the John Pearson, account of like all that era, like that's where all of those guys, the Clerks is spending
Right.
money like crazy, but
Right.
all for festival screenings.
Right.
It's like, I was like, oh, that's a great idea as like a teenager.
right. So we didn't
You
do
know, of
any
course.
festival deals. We just had the amounts that we had to pay to these people, but we
Right.
didn't have the money left to pay it. So we did the buyer screening. And again, like our movie has 9 lives. We got like the exact MG from Samuel Goldwyn to pay for the music. They didn't know what the music was going to cost. Like we didn't tip our hand. They just said, how about this amount? We said, how about this amount? We ended on that amount, and that amount covered exactly.
And were they at the buyer screening?
Yeah,
Samuel
they
Goldwyn?
were at the buyer screening. Yeah.
In summation, it was like a lot of luck that you couldn't have foreseen or created, really, that it just felt like, wow, we barely got away with that. And somehow, which feels like kind of what movie making is like, there's this like element of magic luck that like it just kind of all sort of worked, and then you got through it's Indiana Jones. It's Indiana Jones with the weight, and you're just trying to balance what you're trying to get creatively, and
Yeah.
like
How much
actually
sand is in your bag?
How much
Right.
sand is in your bag? Is it gonna work?
What's so funny is like I have this whole story, and I think I'm so unique, and I cracked this book about first time directors, and I'm like, oh, this is everybody's
is
story.
everybody.
This is everybody. Like
Yeah.
everybody went through a nightmare in their first movie, funded it by like doctors, dentists, and friends.
Sure.
And so
I love these rich dentists I keep hearing about.
Yeah.
I had no dentists
No.
or doctors, so I don't know why I even keep saying.
We did
doctors
have a
and dentists.
filmmaker on who was the daughter of 2 orthodontists, and she did make some connections through them. So
Yeah.
That's great.
There you go.
I mean, I
Joe
know
basically
pretty-
like grew up in New York, and a couple of friends went into finance, and we like reaped
yeah,
the
There you
benefits.
finance
go.
and law.
yeah.
So was it worth it?
Yeah, of course.
It was very worth it.
You want
yeah.
to do it again?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Are you working on something?
I've got a couple things that I'm producing that'll probably not be for me to direct, and then I have a script that I like found recently that I love that I'll see if I can convince the people working on it to let me direct it. It's funny. It's hard to find that piece of material that like blows your mind, and I've been in it. You could have a great piece of writing that just you don't connect to for whatever reason. Or a piece of writing that everybody says is fantastic, and look at these incredible people attached to it, and you're just like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I just
Right.
don't know, and then something just like strikes you, and for whatever reason, you're just sucked into the orbit of this piece of material, and you have no hope of getting out until you, I don't know,
Make the movie.
Until you
Make
make
the
the
movie.
movie.
Yeah.
So we're all in all extremely fortunate and grateful for this crazy experience. It's like the best experience that I would never want to go through again.
And well, are you going to use this movie as like a calling card? Is
Yeah,
that
for
the-
sure. Yeah, so exactly. Yeah, send it to people and see what they think and what they say, and if they think I'm like a competent enough storyteller to do it again. And
And are
Audrey
you
was-
still acting at the same time?
I'm like not really, to be totally honest. Like sometimes I always was like pretty, I don't want to say choosy, but like I like was lucky enough to usually only get cast and stuff that was pretty good. I've done my fair share of garbage as well, but that like I'm
Your resume is pretty stellar.
I'm not the kind of person that's like getting a pilot every year.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Like I know those actors that just like they get a pilot every year, like, and sometimes it goes for 3 episodes and sometimes it doesn't. And it doesn't matter. Like that's never been me. Like it's been the sort of thing where I'm like, oh, I could play this part. Like I kind of look like the real guy. And like, I think I'm like good enough at it that I could like do it with these other actors who are in it. So, you know, like I'm still like super excited to work as an actor for like all the directors that I haven't worked for yet, or some of them that I have worked for and work for them again. But I really want to make another movie.
That's cool. What did I really enjoyed Big Little Lies, like many people. What did you learn from Jean-Marc Vallée?
Jean-Marc was like a huge inspiration to me at the time, and I was on the Big Little Lies set when the initial version of the movie started coming together, and James said he would do it, and you know, that sort of thing. So Jean-Marc is
the initial version of Summer Night. Your movie.
Yeah, our movie. Jean-Marc is amazing. He lights 360 and everything could be filmed at any time. And his cinematographer, Eve, is on what they call the butt dolly, which looks like a industrial office chair. And Jean-Marc has him by the shoulders and he just moves him.
It's a Fisher. It's like a small version of a Fisher,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And he just like moves him where he wants him.
Wait, but is this hand like shoulder mounted camera?
Shoulder mounted all the time. It's always shoulder mounted. And Jean-Marc is just an extraordinary editor as well. So I had spent a lot of time with his movies. And once I was on set with him, I'm like,
which movies did you make?
Crazy, which is incredible.
It's a French-Canadian
The Young
wild
Victoria with Emily Blunt, which is
Yes.
great.
period
Yes.
piece, and it's
Yeah.
so good.
It's like an amazing, it's like a wonderful period
It's
movie.
so good.
Yeah.
Cafe de Flore
Yes.
with Vanessa Paradis,
Yes.
which is also extraordinary.
I've seen none of these.
They're really good. They're totally
yeah.
worth.
He's worth a
worth
deep
it.
dive. Like
Yeah.
just as like a cinematic education, he's got a really strong aesthetic. And I think the fact that he's an editor, you can feel what he's shooting, what he's getting, he's thinking about it in, okay, how could this cut? Like what piece is this and how
Yeah.
is it fitting in?
But is
and-
this 360, lighting 360 is like, obviously everyone would love to have that, but is that efficient or?
Yeah, I mean, he uses natural light 90% of the time. So I don't know what exactly it is that they're doing to make it work. But I've never been on a set with somebody who's so electric and so breaking all the rules. So I'll just tell you a really quick story. I was not here for this, but I incidentally did a movie with the sound mixer of Wild, which is also a great movie that Jean-Marc directed.
Oh, he directed that.
Jean-Marc doesn't like having a boom operator on set because it like gets in the way.
Sure.
So he wants everybody to just be laved.
There's a logic to that, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah.
So Jean-Marc, and he loves like sort of by the seat of his pants. And again, I wasn't here for this story. This was told second hand. So they're in a tent and Jean-Marc's like, get the boom out, like the boom out. And the guy like comes out with his boom and my friend Dick is like, get back in there. And he's like, Jean-Marc threw me out. And he goes up, he's like, Jean-Marc, you have to have a boom. He's like, no boom. He's like, if you don't have a boom, nobody's mic'd. If you don't have a boom, you're not going to have sound. Jean-Marc goes, give me the boom. So Jean-Marc takes the boom and he's booming.
This is on Wild.
This is on Wild.
So Reese
He's-
Witherspoon.
He's so he's booming this scene himself, right? And Dick is just like exasperated. It's like after the first take, he goes up to Jean-Marc. He's like, on him for this line, on her for that line, this close, no further, blah, 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 get it right, and walks away. And the AD goes, you can't speak to the director like that. And Dick goes, I can when he's my fucking boom guy. So just
too
seeing the
good.
sort of like punk rock version of making a movie, I was like, I just really want to try
Why
this.
didn't he
You're
want
like,
the
yeah, I
boom?
can do that.
I guess it was getting in his vibe.
This was
Yeah.
his vibe.
Yeah, it was in his way.
It's so funny how like the background of a director just like changes their priorities so much. We had this guy that directs like a ton of Geico commercials, but his background is being like a sound engineer. And his advice was when you get the take and you feel good about it, do one more take where the boom is like literally 1 inch above the actor's head.
Yeah.
in the shot.
Great advice.
Yeah, and
It
then get a
is.
clean plate and then just replace it, and you'll just have amazing clean sound you
Totally.
can use for anything.
Or do it wild. Do every single
Sure.
scene wild.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was fortunate to have really good sound guys and then a really, really great sound designer named Jeffrey Allen Jones, who was able to salvage like everything for me because I hated doing ADR and I didn't want to ADR anything. But yeah, I think that's great advice. I think throwing the boom guy out of a tent is probably not what you want to do.
I don't know that he was thinking through his like rational brain at that point. It was a little.
Yeah, is he like him booming is better than actually having a professional boom op?
I guess he like just the extra
Yeah,
body in
just
the
one more
area.
body.
Right.
Sometimes
Get
that's
away
great.
from me.
I get it. Wild was an intense movie.
Yeah.
Wild's great.
Were there any other like nuggets in terms of 'cause
or
you worked
from
with-
any directors.
Yeah.
Oh,
you know.
I mean, you worked with, who did Lincoln? Spielberg?
Spielberg. I think just like more than anything, I understood the rhythms of the set and understood the set jargon. You understand what it feels like when your day is going right, and what it feels like when things are going off the rails. So, when I work with first timers, I would just watch them just like kill time. Like time is just everything to you,
For our listeners that are gearing up to make their first movie, what's like any concrete examples of mistakes you saw first time filmmakers make that
Like
you should avoid?
how did they kill time? Yeah.
Over talking performance and character while you're on set. Like spend thousands of hours together beforehand. Talk through everything. Talk through whatever. And every actor is different. Try to understand each actor's process. And some of that you're going to be learning as you go. You know what I mean? Like some people are really great out the gate. And then once you get to takes 3 and 4, they're kind of not as great. Some people are just gearing up on takes 3 and 4. And once you get to 8 and 9, they're really exceptional. Like, I think talking about performance while you're trying to perform is bad. Yeah, I think it's bad. I think it's bad for the performances, but I also just think that logistically it just doesn't make sense. There's just no time for it, So like Ian Nelson and I spent we went to like a 4-hour dinner, lots and lots of phone calls, lots and lots of text messages. Ian wants to talk about everything, you know what I mean? But you get on set and you just can't talk about everything anymore. Like you got to have faith. Like you just got to jump off the cliff and hope that you sewed the parachute properly. Because you're just going to crash anyway. Like either you're going to talk it to death and you won't have put it on film, or you didn't do the prep work and it's not going to work and you hope that you can fix it in the edit. But, I guess that would be my main actory note. Is there anything that you can think of that
It can be a
I screwed up badly
non-actor.
with?
I mean, that was great, but it can also be like put 2 cameras next to each other. Like whatever you've seen that has helped.
Know what you want to shoot, know what your camera movements mean, know why you're moving the camera, if you're going to move the camera. That's a big thing. Obviously that was I had to learn everything. I just spent hours at Samuel French on Sunset, which recently closed, which was so
RIP,
sad.
yeah.
But I just would drink their free coffee and buy their books when I could afford them and read the ones there that I couldn't afford and just tried to learn everything.
On directing.
On directing, yeah. And I think you don't really understand how important transitions are.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. If anything that I noticed that even seeing directors on much, much, much bigger budgets not do, which is plan your transitions. Think about how you're getting in and out of scenes and use the camera to tell that story. And you had so many cool ideas that I was oh yeah, I see it. I get it.
Yeah. Figure out your sequences, understand what a sequence is. I never even knew what a sequence was. And it's hard to even explain what a sequence is. You know what I mean? And
it's also a little bit boring to just read it really dry. But then once you're on and doing it, it's you just have that arsenal of oh yeah, I intuitively kind of understand something a little more. And
watch everything that you shot. There were things that I needed that I didn't have. And when Ray and I went and we watched every single frame that we shot from before action to after cut, and we pulled things from after cut, we pulled things from before action. There was a shot of Victoria sitting down, like we had already called rolling, and she was like, oh, and she just like rushed into her position. We used that. We used audio that we had caught of Justin Chatwin in some like big wide, and we're like, that's hilarious. We didn't know he said that. Like, let's throw that in. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else. And like, obviously the kill your darlings, get rid of all the stuff that you think it's cool. It's not cool. It's slowing you down.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think that, and I think transitions are like so important. To me, like you can tell it's a first time filmmaker when it's like medium shot to medium shot, and the next
yeah.
thing,
Yeah. Well, and also not a thing that's innate, to your point, right? That's like, I think that everyone understands, you know, if a scene is going well or not, but it's hard to see the bigger picture of like, how are we going to move from the scene prior to the scene after?
What's your glue? Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, how are you gonna leave the audience feeling? You know what I mean? Like, and it can be cutaways. Like, it doesn't have to be cooked into, you know, the actual shot. Like, there's so many different ways to do it. But yeah, I think, and you know, shoot like as much as you can. just shoot.
Just always roll.
Just yeah. Keep rolling.
I actually have a kind of a sideways question, right? Audrey, you weren't in film when you guys were starting to make this movie, right? And now you made a movie. You know, you kind of were forged in the fire together, but now you're in film as a professional.
Yes.
Right? Like you decided to make that your career.
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, again, like luck. I kind of just feel like basically we did the movie and then came back to LA, and it kind of felt like this weird thing where I'd been here for almost a decade, and I was like, I didn't really know much. I knew a little bit, and my mother's in acting, and so I've always kind of been more on the creative acting side of things. I thought I wanted to be an actor for half a second when I was 18 and came out here and was like super involved in that, and then didn't even occur to me that like there was another world where you could be part of movies but not in front of the camera. And obviously I never thought about directing and still have not, but then once really doing the producing of it, I realized that it was kind of like you're the on-set parent, like you're the camp counselor, if we're using the camp metaphor.
Sure.
So you're kind of helping guide the activities and like make sure no one dies.
No one's drowning in after
Exactly.
canoeing or whatever.
Yeah. So and I liked it, and like oddly, I was like, oh, I'd like to do that again. We have lovely friends that Mark Gill and Hannah Wegg, who we've talked about, and Mark was at Warner Independent. He was at Miramax. He's like he's been an executive for several decades, and he was striking out on his own to make his own distribution and production company, Solstice. And so at the time when we came back from summer night, I got pregnant with our second child, and I was kind of like, okay, right, I'm back in LA. I want to be a producer, whatever that means. I want to like keep making movies and being part of it. And I like remember being in bed, like going to sleep, being like, I just want a job where I get paid, but I'm also like being mentored and like learning a lot and not just like someone's desk assistant. I love that. And oddly, like somehow it happened where I got this opportunity where Mark was like, hey, like we told this story at a dinner party, basically the story we just told you guys, much faster. And it was impressive enough where he was like, hey, like you sound like you could kind of maybe be in our physical production department, which again, I didn't really know the difference between like physical production and production. Like, what do those mean? But he was like, you should like talk to Renee Bassan, who's going to be our head of physical production, who's like been a line producer for years and like really on the ground, like in the trenches. And we talked and we just really vibed. And I don't know, there's just something very like, I feel like the random jobs that I've had and the kind of like pathlessness that I felt as like a young 20-year-old person in like my early 20s, like just kind of living life and being a creative person and all of that, but not really having my like, oh, this is what I want. This is what I'm going for in life. Like this kind of felt like the closest thing that actually felt good. And I didn't feel like a phony saying it and wanting it. And then the doing of it was exciting and like magic and like movies, so fun, so cool. And then to just be like feeling like part of the shepherding of that. Like you're like the doula of movies. Like you're helping it all come together and like stay together. And then now I'm working at Solstice as like a physical production executive, really, really trimmed down studio a la Lionsgate or STX. So we're, making, $30 to $80 million movies, action, big romance, wide release movies. We're going for that market of like, okay, we still believe that people will like go to the movie theaters.
Sure.
And these are the kind of movies that like, generally get a wide audience. And so it's been really interesting to go from like making a like super trimmed down indie movie to like being a part of, huge movies with Russell Crowe, which we just made called Unhinged. And it's like, it's been really an amazing experience. And like, also, as I said before, like same problems.
Sure. Yeah.
95% of the problems are going to be there.
Russell Crowe.
I mean, Russell Crowe was
kidding.
lovely, actually. And he's, when you have a great actor, when you have great talent, that's all that matters. Like you're setting it all up so that you can hope that like the person that you've hired can like be the best that they can be, because that's really all that matters. You can do everything else right. And if you don't have the opportunity, if you don't give the opportunity, or, you don't cast in the right way, it's, you get what you get. And it was really cool to watch like a big star, after, being a part of that whole process. It's been great.
Do you two anticipate that you'll work together again?
Yeah, I think I'm collecting magic beans and my end of things, and Joe's, thinking, yeah, I think we'll do something more together.
So long to get something up and off the ground. So when I do get that next movie off the ground, we're gonna have to. will Mark let you go on sabbatical? Do they have
Just
that
quit
at
my
studios?
job, go rogue.
Well, hopefully it'll be $30 to $80 million.
Yeah,
exactly. We'll be doing the $30 to
This
$80
big
million
movie at Solstice hopefully.
thriller. Yeah.
There you go.
Summer Night Terror.
Yeah. Ooh, nice. The Halloween version. I'm in.
Yeah, the Alamo, but they go back to the Alamo.
Sure.
The
I remember.
And they're shooting. Yeah. You remember the Alamo?
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks for
Thank you
chatting
guys.
with us.
Thanks,
It's been
guys.
so much
So
fun. I
great.
feel like we got to go to like a therapy session here.
Oh man,
Yeah,
welcome to the
us
show,
too.
you
Like,
guys.
Couples work therapy. I don't know how you guys do it. Don't you
Well,
want to just tell
we're
people
not
to
a
shut
real
up and
couple.
tell your own stories after a certain point?
Well, we do that every once in a while. Yeah. Well, I feel like we talk about ourselves a significant amount for people who
We
have-
inject our stories. And I must have
interview.
mentioned when my birthday is at least 2 times.
I will never forget when your birthday is.
Day before Halloween, guys. Feel free to send me a Facebook message. Are you guys cool with hanging out with us for our unpaid endorsement section?
Oh yeah.
Unpaid endorsements.
So I'll start actually. I've got a new YouTube series that I love. It's a bit of a long walk on this one. I love the magazine Bon Appetit, you guys.
Ooh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, man, I'm so pleased that I'm getting like healthy
Love Bon
nods from this.
Appetit.
Yeah, it's so
I
good.
follow them on
Yeah.
Instagram.
My
so
favorite bone magazine.
So then, Audrey, do you know? It sounds snooty, right? You hear like a food magazine, Bon Appetit. No, it's like totally practical. It's really down to earth. It's still into food for sure, but there's they have a really great Instagram feed, but also like their YouTube presence is awesome. And there's a show called It's Alive, and it's one of their test kitchen guys. His name is Brad. He's like real like salt of the earth, like foodie cookie guy, like fermenting things mostly. And they're long ass episodes. It's like 20 minutes on like making some spicy pickles, but it's real weird. It's like if you did like an Adult Swim style episode of like, Check It Out with Steve Brule plus Bon Appetit
Wow.
and all about fermentation.
I'm a huge Steve Brule fan.
So there you go. It's like a real weird melding of those two ideas.
And it's on
so
YouTube
It's on YouTube
for free.
for free. It's Alive with Brad. I can't remember his last name, but I call him Brad Appetit.
Cool.
So that's my show. That's my endorsement.
So I just saw this video. Actually, so Ulrich, who's a friend of ours, posted the DP that is going to shoot his movie or something. And I was like, who is this? And I like went to his Facebook page and he seemed pretty cool. And he posted this video that came out 3 weeks ago called You Shoot Videos by this filmmaker named Morgan Cooper. Never really heard of him. And it's this 42-minute short film. I don't know if you'd call it a
Video
short
essay,
film.
maybe?
No,
No?
it's like a narrative short. It's a Vimeo staff pick I see, which it was not, I don't think, when I watched it like 2 days ago. But I literally just started watching it on my cell phone. I was like, went to pick something up and it wasn't ready and I had to wait. And it's just about this kid in Atlanta or no, like somewhere else, not in LA or New York, just getting hired to make music videos. And he has like a Mavic Pro drone and he has like a Sony A7S. And it's just about him trying to like work his way up in the film industry as this like kind of one-man band. And he meets this guy on this music video. I mean, then it's like he's shooting these rap videos and the rappers are like insane. And they're always like, oh, we'll pay you later, when you send me the video, I'll pay you the money. And he meets like this guy on one of the videos that's super interested and he like has him be his assistant. And it's, I don't know, just for anyone that makes any film stuff, it was just super relatable. It's kind of slow, but it's like shot really beautifully. The performances are nice. And it's just about a person that's making music videos and trying to like break into the next level. And as obvious as it sounds, like it's something, a lot of us have gone through. I've never really seen a film that had done kind of like such an honest job of it. So it's called You Shoot Videos, but it's the letter U, not YOU. And it's because like this guy, everyone's like, oh, you shoot videos, he's like,
Sure.
people think of him as a videographer and he's like, I'm a director,
Yeah.
but no one takes me seriously. So I don't know. It's really good. You
Sounds
Shoot
great.
Videos. It was on Vimeo. Okay. What do you guys got?
Oh, so we've been watching this show on Amazon that I've really become very fond of. It's called Unbecoming a God in Central Florida.
It's on Showtime.
Oh, I'm Showtime. Sorry, not Amazon.
Yeah.
Fleabag. I'm getting Fleabag in that. Those
Sure.
have been my like female empowerment shows of late on Showtime. It's just been very cool to see a show that I feel like has the like 90s nostalgia, really beautiful like production design. It's really well shot, really well written. So I've been getting super into that.
And it's a period piece.
Kind of, yeah. Like
It's Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst in like the
Oh, yeah, I think I
mid
saw a
early
billboard.
90s.
It's really good.
It's
I mean,
really
I
good.
liked-
It's
I watched the pilot with Audrey. I liked it a lot.
And it's on
Yeah.
Showtime. That's
on
like
Showtime.
3 shows that if I get to 4 shows, it might tip me into paying for Showtime.
Yeah, you can sign up for that free 30 days.
That's what we're on.
They'll
That's
give you
what
that
we're on.
Just
trial.
like binge it really
Yeah.
quickly.
Get
Watch
in it.
Escape.
Kidding is in there as well. Escape from
Dannemora.
Dannemora. You guys.
Yeah,
We
oh,
did
man.
watch
Escape from
Escape from
Dannemora.
Dannemora. Yeah.
Oh man, Benicio del Toro is incredible.
He's incredible.
I mean,
in that
everybody
show.
is, yeah. But is it my turn?
Yeah.
Okay, so I only found the whole time I was like trying to make this movie, I only found one film book that was actually about scene transitions, and it was called Between the Scenes: What Every Film Director, Writer, and Editor Should Know About Scene Transitions by a guy named Jeffrey Michael Bays.
Whoa,
and-
is that a pen name for somebody else?
And I don't know.
Just leave out the Michael, dude.
I
Come
know,
on.
right? Just be Jeff Bays. Get right
Jeff
to it, you
Bezos.
know?
Yeah, it must be harder to Google.
But it was great. And it really sort of like changed the way that I watch movies.
Is it
And
like that shot by shot book where it's like, here's like one way you can do a transition and this is what it achieves?
I think it starts more like, what does a wide make you feel as opposed to what does a super tight make you feel? And then what does a long time between cuts make you feel as opposed to what do quick cuts make you feel? And that is how it begins. And then it just sort of talks you through like, if you want to like traditionally we start wide, we come in close, and that's how we end, you know what I mean? But like, how do you want to leave the viewer feeling by the end of your scene or by the end of your sequence? And these are the different tricks that you can employ to do that. So I
Cool.
found it very useful.
Ah, that sounds
Between the
awesome.
scenes.
Between the Scenes,
I've never heard of it.
by
Yeah.
Jeffrey Michael Bays.
I think you just sold 2 copies.
Yeah.
I have bought it for people.
Is that
I sound like
your pen name?
I wrote it. No, but yeah, I've bought it for a couple of people. It was like the most unique piece of film literature or whatever, like film instructional.
Is
guides,
it
'cause,
recent?
no, it's old enough that I found it before we made the movie. And I've read what was like you said like shot by shot, but then there's also like master shots. You know those books. People know the master shot books,
those are great.
which are super fun, like tricks as well. Like you're like, oh wow, you move the camera like this. I feel like that, but this is the only one that I've read about like actual scene transitions and sequences.
Oh, a piggyback on that is If It's Purple, Someone's Gonna Die, which is a book that's so amazing. It's about color in film and how you can like subtly hint
That's
at
like the Sixth
emotions.
Sense stuff, right?
Well, it's like purple means magic. So you notice in like movies like Harry Potter, there's a lot of like purple, like just subtly kind of like built, and green means like
Envy
and like evil, like the poison is always green, and like the smoke coming out of something is green, and like you know, it's just kind of these like very subtle ways to kind of tell story that's not in the words that people are saying or
it's like the emotional properties of color in your production design.
And like it's parceled out by color. So each chapter is like thematic, and it really has great examples. So you're like, oh yeah, I get that. I know that. I know what you're talking about. And it's really fun, and it's something you can kind of just like open and flip through. It's not like you have to read it cover to cover.
Wow.
I don't know who the author is, but If
2
It's Purple,
books
Someone's Gonna Die is what it's
that I will buy and never read.
Yeah, there you go.
It's
Put
There
them
you
on
go.
your shelf, and people will think, oh,
by
this guy.
Patty Bellantoni.
They'll think, oh, this guy hoards books. What they think about me. Cool, guys. Thank you so
Cool.
much.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Where can listeners learn more about you?
Or your movie.
Oh, your movie, yeah.
Well, the movie, you can watch Summer Night on iTunes. You can watch Summer Night on Amazon.
Voodoo, all the streaming services, and then we will probably make it an ancillary deal.
Yeah, we'll make a streaming deal eventually, but we don't know where.
Our
it'll
Instagram,
land.
we do post our updates. Summer Night Movie at Summer Night Movie.
Cool. And what about you guys? Are you on
Tweet or Gram or any of that stuff, or no?
Not really.
That's okay. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. No, that's 100% okay.
Very okay.
Yeah. Well, if you guys ever need to promote something, just shoot us a note and we'll post it on at Just Shoot It Pod across all social media.
Thanks, guys.
Of course.
We rely on you.
Yeah,
there
we'd
you
love
go.
to. But if you want to have us back, we'll come back after our second movie. and
Oh
go
man,
through
There
it
you
too.
I love it. I
Yes.
love that. That would be so fun.
Our $30 million action movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, sounds great.
To 80 million.
Yeah, to 80.
30
right?
to 80.
Let's not
Yeah, somewhere
pigeonhole
there.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to hear about more or check out any of the stuff that we talked about, you can check out our show notes at justshootitpod.com. justshootitpod.com. You can follow me at Mr. Matt Enlow.
And I'm at O Kaplan on Instagram. Our editor is John Luna. Our producer is Madeline Rosewatt. Our webmaster is Ewan Williams. And the music you're listening to is from the Free Music Archive and the artist Jahzzar. And thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
thank you guys.
Bye.